A $10 deposit is just a hassle
Nee,
for
der
us.
ist fast jeden Tag
John,
am
the
Start.
bank clerk, laughed
Der
mockingly.
ist in Karlsruhe, der arbeitet schon beim
Considering the
Saturn.
fees and my work time, it's a loss for our
Hier
bank.
Armo, da steht's.
Oh, but I guess poor people wouldn't
Schau ich die Gasse
understand.
an.
I wanted to
Das keine
retort, but
Römergasse
in
sein
front of my
könnte.
children, I tried to avoid a confrontation.
Dagegen kann gehen
I
mehr
remained
abstehen gegen die
silent,
Gasse
but the
hier.
procedure didn't progress, and John's taunts only
Diese
intensified.
Laternen, das sieht so
Maybe it's impossible today.
mittelalterlich aus immer.
Waiting around felt like a waste of time, but if we couldn't get the paperwork done, there was no point in staying any longer. Just as I turned to leave and was about to take my son Kevin's hand, he tugged on mine
Noch
instead.
schon wieder viel zu viele Bilder.
I could feel Kevin grip my left hand tightly.
Mom, let me borrow your cell, please.
He then took the cell phone that was sticking out of my pocket. Usually, he's so well behaved that his forceful action left me dumbfounded, and then Kevin made a call to someone. Little did John know what would happen next. Kate,
Jetzt geht's
met my
um Eis
husband,
essen.
Mike,
Ich hoffe, der hat noch
back
auf.
in middle school. At that time, we were just classmates
Mein
and didn't
Gehirn
really
schaltet
talk
schon ab
much
so
to each
langsam.
other. So my only recollection of him was like,
Jetzt die
oh,
ganzen letzten
I remember
Tage,
him from the class photos. We got
Sonst was.
significantly closer after we both grew up and met again at a reunion. The excitement of meeting after so long made everyone let loose, and
Okay.
suddenly, my former classmates started spilling secrets, fueled by alcohol. At first, they shared innocent memories like, I was the one who broke the window back then, or we always failed making treats in home economics class, and so we gave them to the guys.
Hier hinten
However,
läuft keiner
as the
lang.
drinking
Okay, das sind keine
continued,
Geschäfte.
the revelations
Und hier
became
überhaupt
more
durch?
and more outrageous, eventually leading to
Das ist
so
die
and
Frage,
so
ja.
had a crush on so and
Das Blut ist
so,
im Bauch, was
spreading
heißt denn
gossip
das?
even about those who weren't participating. Unfortunately, Mike, who was sipping his drink
Indisch ist auf jeden
quietly
Fall
at the
kein
edge,
Fehler.
became the target.
He had a crush on Kate,
Ist
but
auf jeden
never
Fall bei
talked
mir
to
in
her.
den Top 5 meiner
Hearing this, I felt good and
Essen
on a whim,
dabei,
asked
Indisch.
him out. Surprisingly, Mike immediately accepted. We exchanged numbers right there and made plans for a date.
Ach so,
Since I was drunk when I unintentionally did that, I intended to break things off. It was terrible. I know that asking someone out while being drunk and then wanting to act like it never happened was just too selfish. But sobering up, the idea of dating someone I hardly knew scared me. When Mike arrived at the meeting place and I told him, he chuckled and asked if I could spend just one day on a pretend date with him. Feeling guilty, I agreed.
Wahnsinn.
Turns out,
Diese Gassen.
after that date, I continued to go out with
Ich glaube,
Mike.
Touristen sind ja nicht viele.
Simply
Ne? Die
put,
sind alle in La
I
Spezia.
enjoyed his company.
Ich habe jetzt auch
As
keinen
we got
Touristen
to know
gesehen,
each
das waren
other
alles
better,
Italiener.
the Mike I didn't know well disappeared, and I began to see him as a man. When I shared this with Mike, he hugged me tightly. Even though he had never tried to hold my hand before, caught off guard by the sudden intimacy, Mike knelt down and said,
I've been waiting for you to feel this way.
Ja.
If you're okay with it, I'd like to date you with marriage in mind.
all I could say was yes.
Boah, immer so viele
Soon
Bilder.
after, we got married and had a child. We named our son Kevin. Mike was
kommen wir wieder auf die
inspired by his
Hauptstraße,
father
glaub ich.
whom he respects, and so we decided on this name. Mike was embarrassed, but I thought it was cool. Then, we found out we were expecting our second child. Having a good husband and blessed with children, I felt that my life was smooth sailing.
Ich glaube, das ist die
Now,
Rückseite.
I live with my 4-year-old son, Kevin, and my 6-month-old daughter, May.
Musst du machen,
Yes,
einfach
just the
machen.
3 of us.
Das ist eine super
My
Sache.
husband, Mike, is sadly no longer with us. He passed away in an accident just before our daughter was born. He was rear-ended on his way home from work. It was a
Das ist die
sudden
Rückseite von dem
accident.
Gebäude, wo wir gerade drin waren.
Afterward, he was taken to the hospital, but he passed
Wer hat
away
von diesem
before
Ort
our
schon mal
family
gehört?
could even say goodbye.
Sarsana? Ich
Losing
noch
my
nie.
husband to such a tragic event, I was
Ich glaub,
devastated.
das ist echt. Also
On
Italien
his
ist
days
da, Mann.
off, he would tirelessly devote himself
Ehrlich.
to our family, never showing
wahrscheinlich
signs
echt
of
in
work
jede-
fatigue.
Jede Stadt
Knowing
gehen.
he
ja,
wasn't
es-
one to cut
weiß nicht,
corners
ob's
at
überall
work,
so aussieht,
I once
aber
asked him, "Aren't you overdoing it?" With a big smile, he replied, "Thanks for worrying, but making my beloved family happy is
Schon
the
der
best
Hammer.
way to blow away my tiredness." I know of nothing else that does it better. He wanted to be a good role model for our children. He strived to be a good father.
Ab Richtung
I believe
Eisdiele.
his earnest love was
Oh, hat so
fully
einen
felt by
Eisbecher noch.
Kevin, our only child at the time.
Dann schlafe ich wie ein Baby.
I even resented my husband for leaving us with only good
Im Garten
memories.
einfach bei 30 Grad habe ich heute
Don't worry.
den
Mom,
Reiz des eiskalten Duschens entdeckt.
But it was Kevin who said that to me, looking at how I felt.
Kalt duschen ist
It was
geil.
one
Ne?
of the few things Mike had
Danach
managed
fühlst du
to
dich wie
teach
neu
Kevin
geboren.
while he was alive.
Remember, Kevin, when I'm not around, it's your job to protect Mom.
Thanks to Kevin's encouragement, with a smile just like his father's, I was able to recover. Later, as my pregnancy progressed, I had to be hospitalized.
Fast überall.
During my hospital
Yeah.
stay, Kevin, brought by his grandparents, visited me often, bringing a lot of cheer with his smiles.
Kommt hier Gladiator.
Thanks to that, I was able to safely give birth
21.
to my
August
daughter May.
23. What?
After May's birth, becoming a family of
Neuverfilmung
three,
oder was?
I was apprehensive
Invento
about the
Unico.
upcoming whirlwind of parenting. Even with Kevin, it had been parenting with Mike's help.
Anfiteatro Romano.
However,
Di
it wasn't
Luni.
as bad as I feared. Amazingly, my mill came to help.
Kate,
Wahrscheinlich
you worked
einfach,
hard giving birth, so take a rest.
She said so while doing the housework, and the kids really took to her.
Wirklich nicht ganz.
Kevin would often follow her
Nein,
around,
zeigen halt
calling her
alte Filme in
grandma,
irgendwelchen
to the
historischen
point of making
Locations,
me a
möchte
bit
man
jealous. But during that unstable postpartum
Macht ja
period,
Sinn.
having some time to
Sarzana
myself
ist
was a
eine italienische
huge relief.
Kleinstadt am Fluss Maccara in der
Even
Provinz La
after Mike
Spezia
passed
in
away,
Ligurien
his
mit
parents treated
21.000
not only the
Einwohnern.
children but also me like their own family. Every time I see my in-laws, I deeply feel how much I'm
Danke für die
cherished.
Info.
I'm truly glad to be part of this family. That's something I can
Ich mein,
truly feel from the bottom of my
Überleg dir mal eine
heart.
Kleinstadt mit
There was also
21.000
another person who
Einwohnern
looked after our family.
in Deutschland
He's Oliver,
am
Mike's subordinate.
Samstagabend.
Mike often invited him over for dinner after work. He always hesitated,
Ich meine,
saying,
schau dir
"Oh
an, was hier
no,
los
that's
ist.
too
Das ist eine
much."
Stadt mit 20.000
But he
Einwohnern.
never failed to go for seconds, which was
Alles
quite
proppenvoll.
memorable.
Ein Ding nach
When we
neben
had
dem anderen.
barbecues
Das
on
ist so-
holidays,
Wir
he
sind
would
keine
be
Touristen.
invited by Mike and would play with Kevin, enjoying their time together.
Wenn, dann sind vielleicht ein paar italienische
Initially
Touristen
shy,
dabei.
by
Aber
the end of the barbecue,
ist doch der
Kevin would
Wahnsinn,
say with a
was hier
smile,
abgeht.
"It was fun, like having two dads."
was haben wir hier?
After
Ist
a
eine
few more
Bühne.
meetings and playtimes, Kevin naturally started
Ja,
calling
irgendein
him
bekannter
Uncle
Italiener.
Oliver.
Wahrscheinlich Künstler.
After Mike's death, he began taking Kevin to parks and amusement parks on holidays. While he took care of Kevin, I could spend quiet time with newborn
Pause
May.
tot.
Above all,
Ja, also ich
I am
wohne,
grateful
ich bin
to
in
Oliver
Karlsruhe,
because Kevin
300.000
always
Einwohner.
comes back with a big smile
schon fast
saying,
Mausetot.
"It was so much fun." One day, we were on our way to the bank. It had been put off due to childbirth and parenting, but we needed to set up a new account to receive Mike's inheritance and life insurance. After May
Ja,
turned 6
Karlsruhe,
months old and could
gibt
hold
ein
her
paar
head
Ecken, wo
up,
was los ist,
I could
aber
use a baby carrier.
überhaupt kein Vergleich zu
This
hier.
enabled me to free up one hand to hold Kevin's, increasing our
Ich bin ja nicht mal auf der
opportunities for
Hauptstraße hier,
outings
das ist
together.
ja hinten dran.
Kevin
Hier
doesn't
ist es auch
suddenly
nicht so
start
viel.
running. He would walk closely beside me, his serious expression resembling that of a little bodyguard. The bank we were aiming for was a major one, located near our house, where my husband had an
Da waren
account.
wir.
It was my first time opening an account there,
Fäbt schon,
and
da
I
waren wir
decided to
vorhin
go
bei
in
der
person
Einburg.
out of curiosity and a desire to see it.
Da haben wir die
Despite it
ganzen
being a
Sounds
weekday
abgespielt vorhin.
afternoon, the bank was bustling with people. I was
So,
glad
ja,
I had made an
eskaliert heute.
appointment online. However, I had just heaved a sigh of relief when I realized that my outfit was standing out. I was rushed off my feet looking after the kids since morning, ending up in a casual
Trotzdem danke
outfit
für die
of
Info.
denim and a t-shirt. Moreover,
hier
I
geht
was
die Gasse
carrying a
hinten, da ist mein
backpack filled with
Fahrrad dahin.
necessities for Kevin and baby May. Inside the bank, nearly
haben wir
everyone
dann
else
gehabt.
was dressed formally,
Wenn ich
and I
nach dem
felt
Eisbecher
suddenly
überhaupt noch aufs
embarrassed by
Fahrrad
my
komme.
lack of makeup and casual look. I wished I had dressed more appropriately. But it was too late to go back, so I just wanted to finish my business and leave. I joined the queue and informed the staff member that I had an
Den
appointment.
Waschtisch einbauen.
As soon as the
Das ist
male
ein
receptionist
Waschtisch.
saw me, he stared at me intently from head to toe.
Please wait in the waiting area. We'll call you by your number.
I was bothered by his snide tone, but no, that couldn't be it. That must be my misunderstanding.
Was
The
geht denn hier
staff
ab?
member was wearing a name tag that read John.
Da ist doch noch ein
He stood up
Minimarkt
and
drauf.
went to the counter as soon as my registration was finished, then whispered something to the employee there. I felt uncomfortably scrutinized the whole time, but decided not to dwell on it. To be ready for the kids' bathroom needs, I sat near a restroom along the wall and waited to be called. After a while, I noticed something odd.
Oh ja, sind
People who
gemobbelt.
arrived after me were being called before me. Checking my number confirmed
Oh
it
ja,
wasn't
alle
just
mit
my
ihren Mopeds da, ey.
imagination.
Schaut sie
Maybe
dir
they
an,
called
ey.
my number while I took the
Die
kids
meisten
to the
haben
bathroom,
Offroads.
and I missed it. Being new to this bank, I assumed it was their system.
Number 144. Is number 144 here?
Once again, a later number was called. Apparently, someone didn't show up when their number was called. A staff member emerged from the counter area.
Come on.
That staff searched around and then approached an elderly woman dozing in a chair, assisting her to the
Mach den
counter.
Wheelie. Come on.
They were incredibly kind, and it was heartwarming to
Wheelie und dann
watch.
alle Motorräder liegen am Boden.
No, that's not it. Something's wrong. Am I being deliberately ignored?
Ah,
I thought it was impossible, but given the receptionist's earlier behavior, it doesn't seem entirely out of the question. I adjusted my backpack and took Kevin's hand. I then headed back to the reception. The staff member there had changed to a younger one. Next to his name tag on
wo
his
ist die
chest,
Eiscreme?
there was a plate that read in training. He must be a new employee. Good, I thought. He might take me seriously.
Vorne.
Seeing that there were fewer people around, I asked if my number had been overlooked or if I was being skipped.
Well, we're calling numbers in order.
The young staff member stammered, and then after that, he kept repeating, "We call numbers in order, like a parrot," whenever I asked anything further. Wondering if he thought I was complaining, he seemed to panic, making me feel
Hier die
sorry for him.
Kleinstadt, Rockerecke.
Not wanting to be too harsh and risk getting
Ich
dirty
glaube,
looks
Rocker ist ein bisschen
myself,
übertrieben.
I decided to step back and return to my original seat on the bench. Waiting wasn't a big deal for
So,
me
wo ist der
alone,
Eisladen?
but I had the kids with me. I hadn't brought many
Okay, wir können
diapers
hier
for
durch die
May,
kleine
not
Gasse gehen.
expecting such a long wait.
Das mache ich direkt am Eisladen
My son was
rauskommen.
being patient, but I knew his boredom would turn into stress eventually. Perhaps sensing my anxiety, my daughter became facier, and I waited to be called while soothing her.
Number 102. Is anyone here?
Ultimately, I was called more
Ja,
than
da
3
will ich, wenn
hours
ich jetzt mit
after my
meiner
initial
Athena da gewesen
arrival.
wäre,
There
dir mal
were hardly
gezeigt,
any people left in the
was
waiting
abgeht
area,
hier.
and it seemed I was the last to be called. It was an excessively long wait. Even though I had no other plans besides the bank that day, it was now getting close to dinner time. I needed to hurry. I walked
Kannst du sicher
briskly
einen
to the
ausleihen?
counter.
Von den
To my
Rollern.
dismay, it was that rude staff member who was there. His name tag clearly read
Waschbecken,
John.
man sagt auch dazu
He
Waschtisch. Ach
continued to
so.
look down on me with a
Das ist so
blatantly
ein Tisch, wo oben ein
condescending
Waschbecken
gaze.
drin sitzt.
He sighed as soon as I sat down, drained of the energy to be irritated. I
Ja,
ignored
einer meiner
John's sigh and
Zeltnachbarn
conveyed my
gestern,
need
der
to open an
ist
account.
Harley gefahren.
You could have opened
Der
an
macht eine
account
Harley-Tour.
online. You know. Seriously, coming to our bank with kids in tow is unthinkable. Well, when you're poor, I guess you can't afford to mind your time and place, Pope.
Netter Musik.
He said that to me while smirking condescendingly. I wondered why I had to endure such treatment.
Für Beeindruckung muss
I
schon
didn't
eine
even
Harley
want to
sein.
continue the conversation.
Wo ist das Eiscreme-Ding?
Excuse me, I have another appointment after this. Could we hurry up? That was a lie. I had no other plans but wanted to finish opening the
Ich glaub, das
account and
war
leave quickly. I didn't want my son Kevin to witness such adult behavior for too long.
Busy as a bee. I see. Thanks for your
Joghurteria.
hard work.
Haben die jetzt auch Eiscreme, ist die Frage.
He lazily spread out the
Steht Joghurteria
documents.
Creperia.
I quickly filled out the necessary information and handed them back.
You'll need to make an initial deposit. Do you have cash on hand?
Such a rude man. His words dripped with
Giorno?
condescension.
You
But
have
getting
ice
too
cream?
upset might upset my daughter May again. If that was the case,
Gelato
this
soft?
staff member would likely become even more aggressive. I needed to stay calm.
Okay.
Is $10
Do you have
okay?
picture?
It was embarrassing to say $10 given the previous comments about being poor, but that was all I had. John picked up the bill from the tray, glittering it with a sneer.
Soft ice.
A deposit of just $10 is troublesome
something like
for
this?
us. You know.
Something like this?
He continued mockingly.
Okay, okay.
Considering the fees and my work time, this is a loss for our bank. But I guess you wouldn't understand, being poor and all.
I wanted to avoid any confrontation,
And I can choose?
especially in front of my children.
Okay, okay.
So, I remained silent, listening to John's escalating
Perfetto,
insults.
perfetto.
He ranted about how the initial deposit
White,
reflects stress in the bank and how ignorant I was not to know this, eventually sneering as he pointed to the head of household section on the floor.
You probably drove your man away with such ignorance,
Is
didn't
pistachio?
you?
Pistachio? Yeah, pistachio.
For
How
the
many?
first time, I felt more baffled
many?
than angry.
Okay,
Strangely, even though Mike was being ridiculed, I felt as if it was all happening to someone else,
Yeah.
almost as if I had reached enlightenment. John's words just slid through my mind like a severe case of tinnitus.
Yeah.
It seemed impossible to get anything done today.
3?
Waiting here was a waste of time if we couldn't complete the process. As I was about to leave with Kevin, he tugged at my hand instead. I could feel the strength in his grip.
Mom,
Leute,
can I
so
borrow
sieht es
your
aus.
phone, please?
He said that, and then took the cell phone sticking out of my pocket. Usually, he's so well behaved that his sudden assertive action left me
Schauen wir mal, ob
stunned.
das...
Then, Kevin made a call to someone. The call connected
Oh,
almost
wow.
instantly.
Oh,
Grandpa? Hey,
wow.
can I cancel the
This is
$500
soft
million
ice.
account?
Mit einer weißen
While I
Schokoladensoße
was
drüber.
stunned by Kevin's words,
Pistachio?
John burst into laughter.
So
What are
Schokokügelchen
you
und das
talking
andere.
about? At your
Machen wir mal
age,
irgendeine andere
you
Nuss.
should know how to count money. Poor education must
Kann man
be a
essen.
thing in a poor family.
Ziemlich
Huck,
süß, aber
that's
kann man
sad.
In contrast to John's mocking laughter, my son smiled cheerfully. Then, looking at me, he said with energy,
Danke, Terror.
Grandpa, that was sad. He's
Soft
coming
Eis
over
mit
now.
Keens.
it seemed Grandpa was already on his way, making it hard to cancel now. John,
Bei
overhearing
mir
our
kommt beim Waschtisch
conversation,
unten Wasser raus.
must
Das
have
ist wohl
thought it
irgendeine
would take a
Dichtung.
while.
Undicht.
He lazily started to
Eis
speak.
für alle.
Taking
3
up the
Euro.
time of capable people shows
Das ist
how
ein guter Deal für die
ignorant you
Größe.
are. That's why you're poor.
I thought to myself, you're the rude one. But it was clear that John was beyond reason.
Ja, ich bring die
I gave
Zehner auch
up
mal mit
trying
nach
to converse
Deutschland.
with him and just
Der
waited.
Tag wird kommen.
A few minutes
Dann fahren wir
later,
mit der
the
Tina.
buzz among the staff signaled
Wenn wir
the
Starlink
arrival of
haben.
Grandpa, my Phil.
Zehner-Tour Thailand,
He was
Deutschland.
dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, but his slightly disheveled hair suggested he had rushed over. Upon seeing him approach, John froze.
You should have
Ich
called
hatte
me
mir
if
in
you were
Italien
coming.
richtiges Eis geholt, ja.
My
Gibt's
Phil
jetzt
said
nicht.
that nonchalantly while petting Kevin's
Wir sind
head.
ja noch eine Weile in Italien,
I thought it
also
would just be a quick
glaub
account
mir,
setup,
könnte
and
noch
I
ein
didn't want to
oder andere
bother
Eis
you.
geben.
He nodded in satisfaction. He was smiling
ist halt so soft
constantly,
Eis, klar.
but his eyes were not as he looked at John.
What?
Finally
Ja,
reacting,
ja, kannst
John
vorsichtig
jumped
sein,
up
wenn
from
du
his
tot
chair,
bist.
retreating while trying to hide his twisted smile with his hand.
Wenn du
Mr.
irgendwann
President,
in der Kiste
why
liegst,
are
kannst
you
du immer noch
here?
vorsichtig sein.
My Phil, also Kevin's grandfather, was the bank president. Of course, it seemed John recognized the face of the head of his workplace right away as he turned pale. My husband had also worked at this bank. Phil was stricter in business than my husband, so my husband had used no connections for his job entry. He focused on gaining field experience, but soon there
Ja,
were
keine Ahnung, wie lange
suggestions
der
to
Akku noch
promote
hält.
him to become an executive due
Der
to
war
his
nicht voll.
competence, despite his youth.
Dann sind wir losgegangen.
Then came the tragic accident. His
Fahrrad
path
steht
to
noch.
climbing the corporate ladder was cut short. The $500 million
Ich kann aber nicht,
mentioned by
mit
Kevin
einer
was
Hand
the
Fahrrad
savings
fahren.
Mike had accumulated
Lass mal
before
fertig
our
werden.
marriage.
So, John, is what my grandson said true?
John, flustered, replied, "No, that's not
Ah, 5
exactly."
Kilometer.
It was clear from his demeanor that Kevin's words were true. with John's
13.
eyes darting back and forth. Phil
13
leaned over the
Stunden, 1000
counter and
Millimeter.
said in a stern voice,
I don't
Medic.
recall making this bank one that judges customers by their appearance.
Oh,
afterward, when Phil
Wer ist denn da?
explained to
Medic?
John that I was his daughter-in-law, he became terribly flustered and
Medic,
apologized
danke für den
profusely.
Raid. Ehrenmedic.
It's not about special treatment for family. Judging by
Willkommen in-
appearance and assumptions is
Wie heißt
unacceptable.
es?
Have some shame.
It was the first time I saw my
Modell
always
immer.
amiable Phil angry, and it carried the
Wir
weight
sind
befitting a
in
bank
der
president.
italienischen Stadt namens
A man who seemed to be John's supervisor
Wer?
came rushing, apologizing
Sazan.
profusely. But
der
at
Nähe
my
von der
FIL's
Spezia.
command of take him away,
Sind wir
he was
gelandet
quickly
heute.
led to the back. Returning to his usual cheerful demeanor, Phil relayed a message to
Ja,
a
ja,
nearby
Sazan.
staff member, then told me to sit at the counter and wait
Was
before
hast du
leaving
gemacht?
the bank. He must have carved out time from his busy schedule for this. As I waited as instructed,
Was hast du
a
geschrieben,
replacement staff member came to assist me promptly. That was
Kleines
Oliver,
Eisennachtisch.
my husband's former colleague.
I apologize for John's behavior. I'll be handling your case, so please feel free to
Also, wenn
ask
irgendwann
anything.
Krebs kommen,
He proceeded
Bescheid,
with the
Sie machen
process
wahrscheinlich, ja.
smoothly, and the account was opened without further issues.
Uncle Oliver, let's play again soon.
Kevin, happy to see Oliver, waved goodbye until we could no longer see each other. Watching this, my accumulated negative feelings from today's events seemed to vanish, and by the time I left the bank, I was smiling.
der Siphon.
I realized again what my husband used to say.
Da sind sie wieder.
Nothing makes
Die
me happier
italienischen
than
Hunde.
seeing our child
Die
happy.
Fußhupen.
Later, we
Zwei
visited my
Fußhupen
in-laws to
gegeneinander.
express our
Ein Dackel,
gratitude.
ein Pudel.
But as soon as my Phil saw me at the door,
ignorieren Sie schon
he
wieder.
apologized before I could even say thank you.
I'm sorry. As the bank president, I share responsibility for my employees' rude actions. I sincerely apologize.
I felt apologetic instead because he had helped us this time. When I told him that he didn't need to apologize, he knelt to be eye to eye with
keine
Kevin
Ahnung, wer
and
die
took his
rausgelassen hat.
hand.
Kevin, thank you for
Wahrscheinlich der gleiche,
protecting
der
Kate,
den Käfig,
my son's precious
den
wife.
Zombkäfig
I'm
aufgestellt
truly
hat.
grateful.
Looking directly
Songs
into
sind
my
los.
FIL's serious eyes,
Es regnet
Kevin,
Songs.
with an equally earnest
Moment.
expression, said,
It's a promise I made with Dad.
he stated it clearly. Upon hearing this, my Phil momentarily looked surprised, but then just said, I see, and affectionately ruffled Kevin's hair. Returning from my in-law's house, I was informed
medic.
about John. My Phil had intended to bring it up at lunch, but my mother-in-law prevented the conversation, fearing it would spoil the meal. Seeing their earnestness and thoughtful care, I wondered if this is how my husband would have been if he were alive, which brought tears to my eyes. Apparently, John had received complaints about his customer service attitude even before he met me. The branch manager had repeatedly attempted to guide him, but without any improvement. It seemed they were struggling. However, being directly reprimanded by the bank president seemed to have impacted John. He has become much quieter now. He was removed from counter duties and reassigned to menial tasks. My Phil expressed his frustration of wanting to fire John but couldn't due to employment rules. However, I was content knowing I wouldn't have to encounter him again. On another day, Oliver came to visit. Despite it being his day off, he came because he remembered something Kevin had said when leaving.
Da gibt's so eine Zange.
Watching them
Die
play
machst du beim
while
Rohr
holding
zusammen.
May, I noticed Kevin was still visibly happy. By evening, Kevin, tired from playing, had fallen asleep. Oliver cleaned the soccer ball they had been playing with before placing it beside Kevin.
Since Kevin enjoyed it, it was worth the visit. Thank you.
I was the one who was thankful, really. Kevin, usually appearing tense, returned to his childlike demeanor when playing with Oliver. As a mother, I felt I had deprived Kevin of his childhood. It's a sad thing to admit. But with Oliver, Kevin could be a child again, and I am deeply grateful for that. When I shared these thoughts, Oliver, with his always kind smile, said this.
Ma'am, you are doing your best. That's why Kevin is imitating you. But if you want to ease his burden, please rely on me. I can't replace his father. I'll surely be a support.
I know I will continue to rely on his kind and strong spirit. After my husband's death, it felt like I was being swallowed by a gaping hole in my heart. However, the connections with people that Mike, who should have been gone, had left behind, ended up saving me. Mel, Phil, Oliver, and especially Kevin and May pulled me through. They are all such wonderful people, more than I deserve. I will live my life being supported by them. I wonder how Mike, watching from heaven, feels about me always needing help. Would he be angry at my inadequacy? Or just shake his head in pity? I can't imagine either.
Oh well.
Even though Mike is strict at work, he's soft when it comes to family matters, always giving me a kind and dependable smile. I can only picture him like that. Will Kevin perhaps smile like that one day as well? I believe he will. Kevin takes after Mike. But as a mother, I hope that resemblance is directed towards the people he cherishes. I want him to show me his weaker side more. Having shown my vulnerabilities and been helped so much, I can't help but feel it's too late to ask, yet I still wish for him to remain a child. My beloved husband and my beloved son, Kevin. To prevent the promise they made from becoming a curse, I need to be stronger. There's no husband here to protect me and the kids anymore. It's up to me to protect them. And for that, I'm ready to accept any help I can get. Yes, I've made this strong resolve.